Hey, what's going on? Um, this is the third or fourth attempt to do this. I already made one. It was like an hour long, and I was like, nah, that don't work. Um, so, anyways, I wanted to do a little um, set of tutorials on Caustic. Um, reason for this is it's not like Caustic is my only thing I use, but it's quickly becoming my go-to. Um, it's not that I don't have any DAWs on the computer. I have I picked up Bitwig last Christmas. So it was $100 off, so I picked that up. I also picked up Traction just because I've been wanting to try it, and then that was a quick regret. No, I'm not gonna go into that, but Traction just I don't know. I don't know what type of person Traction's good for. It's got so many problems that it doesn't work anywhere near what you'd expect it to work. I picked up Studio One Pro 2 a couple years back, and it was on sale. I think it was like at the end of its lifespan because 3 came out almost right after, but I got it for half off, so I can't complain. And years ago I picked up Ableton 8, but it was one of the slimmed down versions, and quickly outgrew that. So that's why with my PC DAWs, I never get ones that have slimmed down versions. I think that's stupid. So I go for the ones. That's why I was really tossing between maybe upgrading Studio One or FL Studio, which FL Studio comes with lifetime updates. But I tried a demo of Bitwig 1 when it came out, and really just liked Bitwig's workflow. And plus, it works on Linux, which as of lately I've been switching more and more to Linux, so that was all a plus. And plus, it has some amazing instruments within it. So, and I liked its workflow over Ableton, being able to quickly save and pull up presets, which you can do in Ableton, but it's not nearly as intuitive as you'd expect it to be. Which Studio One kind of ruined me on that, because you can very easily save presets, and it just, like I said, it kind of ruined me. So I like to save my presets, and it saves a lot of time. You have like a standard, you're gonna throw an EQ, a compressor, the shit you're gonna throw on a channel. You can easily just call that up in a preset. But anyways, a lot of the people I talk to starting out, I almost always tell them just pick up Caustic. It's a very inexpensive investment, and it's worth every penny. And even if you don't stick with Caustic, it teaches you everything you need to know, and you can very easily use what you learn from Caustic if you want to move to a big DAW. But for me personally, I find I do better when I removed some of the options that I had. I was running into a problem with, on the computer, between plugins you can purchase, and there's actually a ton of great free plugins. But when I was starting out, I had hundreds of plugins, never really took the time to learn what any individual one did. Opposed to Caustic, it forces me to learn. Like, if I have an idea of what I want it to do, it forces me to learn how to do it. Opposed to, okay, I just need a plugin. Whoa. I was going to do a series of videos that going over some of the things I get asked. One of the biggest things I get asked is because it's easy to get overwhelmed in Caustic first time. And not to take away, there's actually a ton of great tutorials on YouTube. I'm not going to take away from that. The Caustic channel has a ton of them. SFlex, that was one of the channels that I really dug into. Kind of teach you how to use some of the techniques that maybe you could do in a PC DAW, but how to do it in Caustic. So those are all great tutorials. I'm not going to try to take away from those. What my aim is maybe kind of fill the gaps, like if there's mostly just covering things I get asked. So this first one's mostly just going to be essentially just a quick overview of Caustic, hopefully not an hour again, like what happened yesterday. That's why I didn't go too in depth in the introduction. But anyways, so here's Caustic. It if you're used to something like FL Studio or Reason, it's not much different. In a sense that you can put one of your machines in here, say, and each of the machines, they do something different. One thing that don't get hung up on is like, okay, there's the one that actually called baseline. It's you got a couple funky little basses. You got your presets, or you can come up here and adjust it, make your own. Which again, there's great videos on Caustic's YouTube channel that go over exactly what they do. But it's not the only bass. A lot of these have a bass preset. So I mean, you just kind of, if you're starting out, maybe just go through and dig through some of the to start digging through presets, and then, like I said, watch Caustic's channel, because there's a great video on the modular machine. There's great videos on what exactly you can do with the modular machine, which I'll even go into lengths later on. There's a lot you can do with the modular machine that's not even necessarily using it as an instrument. But I'll go into that. But you have your channels. You have 14 of them, which is generally okay. I'll open up a song here in a second. There's some songs I hit the limit. And it all depends on your device. As long as you have a pretty newish device, it's not a super cheap one. Like right now I'm using the Amazon Fire HD. I picked it up it was on sale for like $125 at Best Buy. It's got its problems when you're trying to run non-Amazon store apps, but it works, and it works better than before that. I was using a Samsung tablet from Walmart that was twice the price, and this works way better. Anyways, you have your effects, which you get 2 effects per channel, and this is one of the things that it's going to come back to. You can easily do with the modular, is you can easily add an extra effect slots if you're trying to go crazy with an effect. And there's other better methods actually, which I'll go into in another video if you really want to get effect heavy. There's easier, better options, which involve actually this thing right here where it says merge rack to instrument. And I've done that, and I'll give you a quick show you. I'm not saying it's great, but wait, what did I call it? I called it dirty bit synth. I wanted a gritty, like bit sounding bass, and what I did is actually created multiple instruments and then exported it as an instrument. But that'll be in another video. Anyways, you have that. You have your mixer, which you can scroll down to. But you have your mixer, so you can adjust bass, mids, highs, and of course adjust your volume. And you can add your compressor from up here. And the biggest thing is you can sidechain. So whatever you're going to sidechain, which again I'll go into more depth later. But you choose the number, and the number is going to correspond with what number it is. So like baseline is 1, modular is 2, PCM synth is 3. If you don't know what sidechaining is, like I said, I'll go into that later. You go down, or of course you can go down here to master, same thing, where you can adjust delay and reverb parameters. I would say starting out, leave that alone. Reverb, you can quickly give it to where you're going to get way too much of a ping pong effect. The defaults are set pretty nicely, so that way when you add a little bit of reverb, it's subtle to insane. That's why I'd say leave reverb alone. Kind of the same with delay. You can set the steps, which is how many times it's going to repeat, the time, the feed. But you can easily make it a little too crazy. And the defaults are pretty, getting subtle to insane. So I rarely mess with those. If there's something I'm really going for that's really crazy, I might go in here and throw a delay on here, and then adjust it to the way I want, and then that way I can not mess up that one. And then you have 2 effect slots on your master. This is just me. I generally throw on a compressor and an extra limiter. I've noticed that the limiter, now this is just if I take that back. I have a really weird way of doing things. As I'm working, I try to push the limiter to mastering levels so I can hear what's going on. And then sometimes I'll outright master a song on this, but most of the times when I'm done, I will turn the limiter off, and then like say I'll have this up, so I'll double click it, put it back to normal, and then that way I'll export the song and bring it into Bitwig and master it. Kind of depends. The only thing I feel is missing to be able to do that is I would like to see the frequencies and where they're at, and there's nothing to visually really see that in here. Which is not saying over time that you don't get kind of an ear for it, but I also don't have great headphones and kind of going deaf, so I kind of need to visually see it. So that's why I usually won't master in here. And then this is your pattern, which down here on the bottom you switch between song and pattern. In pattern mode, you're going to get these where it's A, B, C, D, and then you have 1 through 16. These are different patterns, which if you've ever used FL Studio, you're pretty familiar with that. The only difference in here is that you just don't name them, but you get a pattern, and then you're going to dump it down here in, I don't remember what machine that was, but see, the only ones that'll be won't be grayed out is if you have an actual pattern on it. So you can lay that out here, then stretch it out as far as you want or as little as you want, and then over here on the right you got some of your controls to multi-select, select none, select all, or if you have multiple ones, want to drag and drop to select, use lasso. You can select time, so I can do that in time, and the time one is only going to select things within that time. Now since A1 I stretched it out further than that, it's not going to select it. And then you got your copy and paste, and then undo and redo. But the biggest thing to get used to is this tool up here on the top. It's what you can resize things with, because automatically, like, you want to take your finger and drag it, which actually drags it. You can't resize it. And then you can zoom in and out up here. And then the eyeball is purely for dragging around, so you don't have to worry about grabbing a track and moving it. I don't tend to use that. I tend to use the left side to scroll up and down, then just use a scroll bar on the bottom. And then you can select a follow, which follow, oh whoops, it's not song one, but that'll follow your cursor, or the playhead, or whatever you want to call that. So I turn mine off because it makes me dizzy. Then that's pretty much the basics. Down here on the bottom, you got your metronome, or if you hold it down, anything with I should mention that. Calm down. Anything with the black triangle in the corner, if you long press, it's gonna do something else. So just kind of keep that in mind, and you can have your count in measures, like when you're recording. So like if I do that and I hit record, it's gonna count in. And a quick overview of the settings. They're pretty self-explanatory. New, load, and save. That's pretty obvious. Exports when you're done and you want to export a song. And you can put in the parameters. Most of the time you're just going to be doing stereo mix down. You'd export stems, like if you want individual files for each individual channel, that's what the stems are. The difference between mixer and master is if you want those master effects applied to it, which probably most time you would. So I'd say the stems master is what you generally do, but the stems mixer is what it's a quicker mix down, because it's not adding any of the final effects to it, and that's when, if you exported that way, at the end of the day you may end up with something that everything's kind of off. So I'd say leave that on the masters. You got your tempo to change your time, the time signature, which if you're just starting out, I'm not going to go into great lengths on time signature, but maybe just stay on a 3/4 or 4/4. Those are the most popular, what you're going to hear on the radio. And then you can add a shuffle, which all the shuffle does, and you got to be real careful, but if you want to add like a little bit of a human element, so things aren't perfectly lined up, you can kind of shuffle it, or kind of give it like a funk. you have your options. Most of these you can leave on default. The only thing is on the audio API, and I can't change it because it'll crash it. It's not a bad thing. You just reopen it, but I don't want to deal with it. But on audio API, if you're on a newer, faster device, you definitely want the OpenSL, and then kind of mess around with the latency. Reason for that is, just in case you don't know what latency is, that's the time it takes to hear something when you're doing something. Easiest way to explain it. So say when you hit like a key on a keyboard, you want to be able to hear that as soon as possible. By Android's not great with latency, and I'm kind of disappointed in Android that it's been so many years, and it's nothing to do with even Caustic. Caustic's actually one of the lowest latency apps I've dealt with, but it's an issue of Android that latency just sucks. So, but with this OpenSL and on the lowest setting, you can get pretty close to real time, to where it's doable. But if you're on a slower device, you got to be careful, because the lower latency it is, the higher CPU usage. On this Fire tablet, I haven't run any problems. On the Samsung tablet I had, if I went more than 5 tracks, it would start bugging out because the CPU is just too much. So then I'd have to switch it to the I forgot the other option. Like I said, if I click it, it's going to crash it. But under Audio API, there's usually 2 options. But the OpenSL is going to give you more of an instant latency than the other one. But if your device is bugging out because it can't handle it, you can totally switch it. Everything's totally fine with that. The only thing that'll happen, you'll notice when you push a key, it'll take a second till you hear what the key's doing. One of the biggest options I use is allow screen rotation, and what that does, and I know it's sideways for you, but this is how I work. So that way you can get multiple machines at once. So that's how you turn that on or turn that off. Everything else I'd say leave default. MIDI, you can connect MIDI controllers. I have a Korg Nano key that sometimes I'll plug in. I have it on this version because I just recently restored this one. So, but you have to have an on-the-go cable, USB cable. It doesn't just plug. Under tools, you got standalone way better, which I'm going to go into more depth, and then the merge rack to instrument, and then your help section, which you could very easily pull to YouTube tutorials. So I'm going to leave it at that with this, because I'm going to go in more depth later on. If you have any questions, please just drop them in the comments, or send me a message. And if there's something you want to see covered, do the same thing. Just drop me a message. But hopefully this gives you a quick start on how to use Caustic.